Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into the Misfit Athletics Phase 8 programming podcast. If you're used to tuning into Unprepared, the Coaches podcast, the other 6 names that we put to the same podcast, this one is actually a little bit different. We've got every 7 weeks we come back and we talk about the programming. We talk about where we're at in our season, and we really try to sort of kind of tell the story and keep you guys involved and, really ask for that buy-in when it comes to the programming. So even if you don't follow the programming, we're gonna get into all kinds of stuff about the season and why we do what we do. And, sometimes that can be maybe a little interview for us to see if you think that we're a good fit for you. We are going to get back to something that we used to do that we really enjoy doing, and that's answering your questions about the specific phase after the Phase 8 podcast. So we are going to do a Q&A episode next week. This episode and all of the other episodes now are on YouTube. Head to the Misfit Athletics YouTube channel, and we are going to be pulling questions from this podcast, and feel free to mix in some ones that aren't directly related to Phase 8, but that you're really, trying to figure out right now. So YouTube comments section, throw your questions in there, and then we will do one of our old school Q&A episodes and make sure that we're sort of connecting the dots between the things that we talk about and then the pieces that you guys are kind of asking for. This is the first podcast that we've done about programming where we know what's going on with the actual season. This is a kind of a big moment, right? Like Absolutely. We've got, once this phase starts next week, Monday, November 2nd, you're going to have 15 full weeks.
Time to get in shape, Hunter.
To prepare for the Open.
I quit.
I don't know. There's something like there's some memes going around right now of like, just kidding, Opens in 14 weeks, good luck, like that sort of thing. I don't know. I kind of like it. I kind of like the time frame. I kind of like a 2-phase setup leading into the Open.
I don't want to be.
It feels right to me. It feels like the right amount of preparation you would need to really either ramp back up or turn a corner.
I don't want to be too nostalgic, but it does feel like for the first time in like 3 years, people are like actually give a shit about the Open again, because the excitement of like not knowing what the season could bring. The Open typically starts the year, but we still don't necessarily know what happens after that. But I think that unknown, instead of being discouraging for the last couple of years, like, it's going to be sanctional winners, national champions, this, that, or this, the other. It's nice to have like this excitement around something, because we have a new CEO. We have this opportunity to see, all right, what's this new year? What's this going to be like? So, it's funny you say that, like, oh, fuck, get in shape. The Open's coming. But like, I'm excited for it because it feels like it used to, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think I really enjoyed, we talked about it in the Games podcast. It was super entertaining. It was fun to watch. And then also getting that little nugget that it's like, hey, Open scheduled is like, the 21st or the 18th of February, something like that. And I got excited as well. I think it'll be nice to have it kind of back to its normal time frame. And I think it'll also be a little bit reinvigorating to the community, because I also think that, and if you're listening to this podcast, you probably enjoy training during the Open or doing the Open and kind of seeing where you stack up. I do think, and we've talked about this a little bit, but my prediction is that the Open is going to matter once again for people outside of that top 20. It's going to be, I'm saying, 20 qualify for the Games, and then maybe places 21 through 300 or 250 or whatever, you are automatically qualified for sanctionals, an online qualifier if the COVID thing is still preventing gatherings and stuff like that, or maybe we go back to a hybrid of sanctional regionals sort of thing. But I do think that's coming, and I think that with the Open now kind of in front of us, we know when it is. Like you said, 3.5 months is a great amount of time to really dial that in and prepare for it. And just because we don't know what comes after the Open right now, I really do think that it's going to be very important for the next stage of qualification.
I think you're right on too, because the new CEO's goal of like 500,000 people participating in the Open, which would be another like 25% jump from their all-time best, which was like 2 or 3 years ago. I think you're 100% right about that. And I think that's how you create that, like dangle the carrot on the stick so someone wants to sign up and get back into that, because it's going to matter more than it had in the past. Like, oh, great. It does matter for people who are outside the top 20.
Yep.
We got those in-between years where Dave got to do a lot of what he thought was right for the sport. It was sort of like after the Open had started and everyone hated Glassman for doing that, and then prior to Glassman blowing it back up after seeing a few balance sheets and income statements. And that was the heyday of the CrossFit Games, the heyday of the sport, the most exciting time that there was. So we go back to that, and then he has someone standing behind him, you know, with the checkbook that believes in the message, and I think brings something to the table that has never been in the organization. And we just got to see that on display at the CrossFit Games.
So it was really cool too. Like you see the new CEO going out to the ranch and doing the, you know, Happy Star before like the actual competitors.
Actually didn't even see that.
That was super cool. I was like, you have a guy who finally embodies what it's like to do the actual, you know, fitness regime. It isn't just like, here's how you do it, go do it. Like he's actually participating in it. So I thought that was super cool. I think he said it did the ladies RX weights and got hammered by it. But like that to me is exciting. It's someone who is actively participating in the sport of CrossFit and wants to see that arm of the business grow. So like you said, it kind of feels like it's sort of returning to the heyday when things were at their most exciting.
We turned it on at our affiliate, and we also talked about it in the Games podcast, but affiliate athletes like enjoy watching that. And it's not a thing where it's like, they have like misguided, you know, feelings about whether they're going to qualify for the CrossFit Games or not. But like your average affiliate athlete enjoys watching that thing. They realize like, you know, they see the value, they see its importance, and then we go back to doing kind of the health stuff that Glassman, I think maybe we just went a little bit too high into the right with the change from, you know, importance of the
We warn
games.
people against overcorrecting. You can learn life lessons in the gym.
Exactly. So I think the games will still, I'm looking forward to them being as important and the open being as important as it used to be, but without the loss of like, you know, the original CrossFit message, which is to make people healthy, keep them out of the nursing home, like all those sort of messages.
So within CrossFit and CrossFit programming and programming for the games, there's a lot of, you know, especially from outside of the community, but then also, you know, from company to company, there's conversations of, is what we're doing random? Like, are we just throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks? That sort of thing. We have very specific rules here of, if you have an idea, that's great. You better be able to explain what that idea is. So like we had a meeting yesterday mapping out, now that we have more information, mapping out the entire 2021 season, post-open all the way through. And while we love 6 phases to be able to do that, one of the things that we really love to do and that we work really hard on figuring out how to do, either from phase to phase or the entire big picture, is how do we sort of plant the seeds in one phase to then show up in the next one. Like if we know that we want, so phase 9, I don't want to jump ahead too much, but phase 9 is going to be very specifically open prep. Phase 8 is designed specifically to prepare you for open prep. So we have all these little things and we're just trying to draw these connections. And we've got a bunch of different ways that we're doing it, and we'll explain that in a second, but it's exciting for us again to have that moment where we can really go to our remote clients and we can go to our affiliate members and we can go to all these different groups and say, like, we know you want to be good at chest to bar pull-ups and toes to bar muscle ups, and you know you want to prioritize maybe the rower a little bit more and all that, and we know that a full phase in advance now, and we can actually start to plant the seeds for something that can be really powerful. So to me, that is why it's exciting for us. Like I know it's exciting for the people that are, you know, trying to qualify for the CrossFit Games or trying to, you know, there's rumors that the open is going to qualify you for sanctionals. So that's exciting again. And that list now goes from, you know, 20 to 200 or 300 or 400, and we can make people give a shit again. But from the coaching perspective, like we need to know why. Like we have to know why we're doing what we're doing, so that not only can we go out and sell it like we're doing right now in this podcast, but also we can like see the changes we're trying to see in our athletes.
Yeah. I think it's always easier to talk about, at least be able to say like, we're doing this because of that, and we're going to do that because of what comes after that. And it's also, it's great for athletes who have, we have athletes both high level and kind of, you know, maybe sanctional or just like really good affiliate level athletes who have been following the for Misfit Athletics for almost as long as it's been in existence, 5, 7, 6, 8 years, whatever. Counted.
Just roll a dice.
5, 7, 6, 5,
roll a
7,
dice.
6,
Yes.
8.
One of them
Right in order.
dice says.
Nailed
That's
it.
Years spent.
And they can see the progress from phase to phase. They can see how the previous phase builds on the next one. But I think we've also done a good job where if you're saying to yourself, like, does that mean I need to start right at the beginning of a phase, or do I need to have done the last phase to do this phase? And that's not true. Like we always tell people, just kind of jump right in where you're at. If you're listening to this now, obviously the beginning of the phase is an ideal time because of the test and retest kind of thing that we're going to talk about here. But also, like, it's beneficial to have that previous phase behind you because you'll see why we programmed the next phase the way that we did, but it's also certainly not a requirement. Like otherwise you'd never be able to jump on board. So if you're considering it, like recognize that what we do next phase is impacted by what we did this phase. And you might be able to see that progress by following a structure that really like builds upon itself without also just completely skewing you in one direction or the other.
It's definitely not too late. I mean, you have a quarter of a year basically to get yourself ready. You got a good 3-month chunk, almost 4 months to get yourself ready. That's plenty of time to get yourself in shape. So like if you are on the fence or, hey, maybe I'll wait until after the open and jump on board, like start now. 3 months is plenty of time to really make some noticeable change in your fitness. And, with our programming having the ability to excel in the open as like the main focus, like you're not going to find a lot of the programs that are out there that might be, skewing you up for a sanctional or a local competition, or might just be more GPP kind of stuff. But like that is our focus, is to get you ready to do your best in what we consider the beginning stage of like how to become one of those high level athletes. So don't wait, jump in right now. And again, 3 months is a great amount of time to get yourself ready to go. Indeed.
So we actually have some really big changes coming to the program and the website. And it's one of those things where we were looking at everything that we offered, and we believe wholeheartedly in the program that's out there. And one of the reasons we believe in it, and I'll use the teens and the masters as an example. When our teens and masters athletes go to the CrossFit Games, they fucking crush. Yeah. Like they do extremely well. We're talking podium, we're talking true run to be the fittest on earth, yeah, that sort of thing. But to not pat myself on the back, like you're looking at, if you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to the 3 people who are basically in charge of every single program. And when you take the fact that, we're talking Sharpen the Axe, you 2 are affiliate coaches, you're an affiliate coach at 2 different gyms. You start to get that thing where people are pulled in a bunch of different directions, and you have sort of these tiny pieces of people being put into different communities. But we also know that the power of the Misfit community is what drives this whole thing. So we went back and looked at it and said, okay, we need a designated specific coach who is both writing the program and answering the questions and just sort of there as that like sort of community leader for each one. We also decided that it was finally time to break out teens and masters. So the big changes are teens program now exists. Phase 8 will be the first time that the teens will have their own dedicated program. And then each program has their own coaches. So I'm going to list off the coaches. I'm not going to say Hunter's name, and that's because he is the coach for all of it. It is his job to make sure that all of these things happen. So if you are asking questions, if you're looking for guidance on MFT or anywhere, I'm your guy. And the 2 main places that you're going to be able to do this stuff so that we can keep it organized are SugarWOD and the comment section on misfitathletics.com or the app. Those are the same thing essentially. The one asterisk when it comes to SugarWOD, and this might sound confusing, but I promise it's not. If you are a complete member on SugarWOD and you have your program toggled to MFT complete, Hatchet complete, Teen complete, Masters complete, you are sort of pulling yourself away from the community a little bit. We like that you can go on your desktop, your iPad, whatever, and look at the whole week in advance. That's the whole point of the complete tier. But if you want to immerse yourself in the community of the program you're following, your day-to-day, I would suggest that you toggle it to either MFT, hatchet, teens, or masters, not the one that says complete. You're going to get, we're still going to go through and try to answer your questions no matter where you post. But if you want to see other people's questions, if you want to see their scores, you want to see their comments, you want to chat it up, the easiest place to do that is going to be to toggle to just your program and save the complete thing for when you want to go look at your whole week and sort of plan everything out. So that there's that. And then it's basically straightforward when it comes to, there's not really any change with the site or the app other than the idea that if it's a question about teens or hatchet or masters specifically, you might be getting an answer from a specific person. Hatchet is going to be coached and written by Caroline. I know she's really excited about this because she is sort of pretty damn close to like the athlete that MFT is written for. But she's also an affiliate coach, and she also helps a lot of athletes at our affiliates that like to follow the Hatchet program. So she has the ability to go in and really decide what she thinks is appropriate for that community because she is like fully immersed in it already.
Like she grew up in this program. I mean, she essentially started at the affiliate as an affiliate athlete and quickly,
I literally coached her as a beginner.
Yes, like Hunter coached her as a beginner,
on-ramp.
and she took herself from, hey, I'm just looking to get in shape. I heard this could be fun, all the way to who she is now. She's essentially had that like Hatchet journey herself. She just did it over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, but it wasn't, hey, you're doing the Hatchet program. It's like she took the blog and made it the Hatchet program, which is something we had done originally with the Hatchet program, as making to be like a stepping stone to the next step. So she's kind of been through that herself. She has that personal experience of what it's like to go from being this person who's just starting to get CrossFit all the way up to, hey, I want to compete at the CrossFit Games. So I couldn't think of a better person to be put in that role because she's essentially grown up and had that happen to herself. And she can put her own personal experience and help you guys with that.
And then coaches two of our Hatchet classes every week, and our Hatchet athletes at the gym are insanely fit. Most of them don't really have competitive aspirations in the sense of kind of following in like a Caroline Connor's footsteps, but they also somehow still manage to plant themselves in the top. Some of the women in the top 300 worldwide in the open, and they come to affiliate class. So Caroline is taking kind of some of those athletes and basing the programming off of that. So it has kind of the correct audience in mind when she's writing.
It's also really nice to have those athletes out in the gym because if she's, we're wondering about this or that, like we have the best taste with the lab right outside to be like, all right, let's see what these ladies or these gentlemen get.
Those poor test dummies that never say no when I walk out there with a whiteboard and they're like, hey, you want to try something?
The conversation is great because it's always, did you do that? And like, it's like either, yeah, sorry, or nope, Hunter did that, or sure did that. Like, that's not my problem. That's not my fault. Like if you want to be mad at someone, there's your person.
Yeah.
So Caroline is taking over the Hatchet program, not only just from writing it, but from this new standpoint of like, she's the group coach. She's the community leader. She's the one who's really the driving force, but behind, kind of selling that message of the Hatchet program. Sherb is taking over the teens program, the brand spanking new teens program. This is very important. I really think that again, if we know what we're doing with the teens and the masters, but we have yet to bridge that gap of really kind of connecting with the community and bringing people in, I think that we have the right people there. And the good thing is we know for a fact that the program works really well. So like now we want to give you the full Misfit treatment of like you're part of a family and the program's going to work really well.
The reason we originally lumped them in is just that, the games had, like, I guess what, if you're going to be in this age category, if you're a teenager or a master, you're going to do roughly the same workout.
Age group athlete.
Yeah, you're going to be an age group athlete. You're all the same. But, having had enough conversations behind these doors to be like, all right, what is the main difference between what these athletes need versus what those athletes need? And it was just high in time to say, all right, these athletes need something different. So let's prioritize that and make sure they have a program that's set up for who they are and where they are in their like lifelong span of a fitness journey. So I'm really excited to get this underway.
It's like the testing is fine, but it's very silly to lump those people together. Of course,
yeah, testing
you've got
way.
one group of people who have basically the greatest mobility anyone's ever seen on earth, and no offense to the other group, that may or may not be the case. Then you have the whole like dad/mom strength thing, where you've really over the course of your entire life, like if you're into this at this point, there's a pretty good chance that you have that supporting musculature that allows for, a heavy deadlift sort of a thing. And no offense to the younger people, but we're still working on getting there. So we needed to really go in and say, like, yeah, you guys can share in the Misfit community as a whole, but you're here and you're here.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that's a main focal point there is, hey, this is where you are in your lifelong journey of fitness. And here's what I think is the best way. And we've all talked about this as a group, what we think is the best approach to make sure that not only are you staying fit year round, but you're on a trajectory so that if this is something you're very passionate about, that the stepping stone of going from being, hey, I like going to my affiliate to I want to compete at the CrossFit Games as a teenager, like this is that iteration. This is the program that's going to set you up not only to try to compete at the CrossFit Games as a teenager, but sets you up for a lifelong goal of having a good, robust base of fitness so that if you do decide past teenagers that you wanted to compete some more, that you're set up and you're on that like right foot path going in that direction. So that's something that I'm very concerned with is how does this program set you up for, hey, as I age out of teenagers age division, am I ready to take the next step? And that's exactly what I'm thinking about when I write this is like, how do I take an athlete who's 14, 15, turn them into a very competent athlete, 16, 17, and then put them into the situation where they could jump into MFT or Hatchet, depending on their goals post-teenage programming.
Right. The next thing is a big announcement for a lot of people that have been around for a while, and then a big announcement for people. I'm just going to tell you that it's a big announcement if you're new to the Masters community. The original Misfit Athletics Masters coach was Gabe Garcia. Long story long.
Never heard of her.
Gabe was part-time coach, affiliate coach, worked with us, also raising his two sons. It basically got to a point where it was like, hey, let's you get a job that's not at a gym kind of a thing. And Gabe was, and like tip my hat to him, like, hey, I want to still be involved, but I don't know how much I can be involved. So we fast forward a few years here, and there's, Gabe definitely, you can tell when he comes in, he misses the community and working with the Masters and everything. So Gabe is back. Gabe is taking over the Masters program. So, for anyone that's looking for that guidance and that community and that camaraderie that we really had a few years ago within the Masters community, I think we're taking the right steps to recreate that. And I think there's something about like Gabe is a Masters athlete. Like Gabe is the kind of person who got into CrossFit. I still remember we did a competition, local competition, and he had moved into the area. And it was back when you went to a local comp, there was like your rival gyms. And you'd pretend to be nice to each other and everything, but you did not like him, but you wanted to beat him. So Gabe moves in from Texas or wherever he was at that point. He's lived in 46 states in his life, and he shows up, and he's easily the fittest person in the building, and I was not so happy about it, but we still
neither was I. He moved to my gym at that point. That's the gym I was going to, and he showed up and just started waxing everybody every workout.
Yeah,
not happy.
So Gabe showed up to, sort of our purview in that place, and then worked up to being a regionals athlete before, transitioning over to like family man, maybe I can't train for X amount of hours a day. So I just think it's important to point that stuff out. He's sort of been there in each place. And he's, throwing his hat in the ring. He just randomly did Granite Games, and did he win?
Yeah, he won.
Yeah.
He first.
So he's got that, if you're one of those people that's like, what does he know about it? He's never done it kind of a thing. That's not.
They challenge him to a workout.
Forgot
how
about
goes.
more than you know.
Yeah. I don't do running intervals with Gabe. I'm just going to throw that out there. So Gabe is back, Masters programming. And when you are writing a program and exactly who it's for, and not that it's for teens and Masters and which box do I need to check out this week and that week and go back and forth, the Masters program is also going to improve. Like it is specifically for Masters. The last thing that sort of fits into all of this conversation that we're having right now is, based on you guys' requests, I've added some percentage guidance into the Misfit Anywhere program. A lot of people are just so used to the way that we write our programming and having percentage work So when you are doing the strength work for Misfit Anywhere now, you will go in and there will be a percentage range on the days that we feel like it's necessary for you to understand where you should be at to then use linear progression to go through. I am still always on the side of, if this is for general fitness, only go heavy on the days that it's feeling really good. And on the other days, just move the barbell faster. That is going to keep you healthy. That is going to keep you from, ruining your central nervous system and your glutes and your hamstrings to then have to do some, maybe do a run workout the next day. Like if the Anywhere program is that general fitness that like I've got, dumbbells and a jump rope in my trunk and I'm just going to get it done when I can get it done. If you want to set a goal of a specific lift to increase, that's fine. But I still truly believe that percentages should just, in that scenario, should be more of an overarching theme than anything else. Now, the last change doesn't necessarily pertain to this stuff, but is something that we've actually been throwing around for a while. And that is a change in volume without a change in volume. So right now on the site, for most days when you go, you see mandatory work and then pick one of the following or two of the following, whatever it is. Now you are still going to see your mandatory work, but there's a not so subtle hint of choose 0 to 1 or 0 to 2. So the baseline for the program is choosing nothing, right? And that doesn't mean that you can't go in on a certain day and swap out a mandatory Metcon for a non-mandatory Metcon if you're, really being tough on yourself and going after your weaknesses. But this extra stuff is for specific people. It's for the best of the best, or it's for a 22-year-old man who, is like Ezekiel Elliott doing the feed me thing, like just chomps up volume. Like we've all had remote athletes that are like that, but then we work with them long enough to see when they don't want it anymore or when, their body starts to respond adversely to it. So we need to program for everyone in this. We need to program for you no matter whether you're the type of athlete that responds really well to high volume or not. And that's why now one of the choices is 0. And to be brutally honest with everybody, most of the people out there that are following this program should choose 0 on most days, or the extra should be a skill or something to that effect. There are specific times of year when adding an extra conditioning piece that's really going to take something out of you is both either a good idea or a bad idea. And we are going to put out content nonstop to try and get that point across. Volume is not impressive. It just means you have more free time, and it definitely means that you're not able to, if you're doing too much volume, put the effort you need into all the pieces that you're doing. Like you talked about someone thinking that 14 weeks isn't long enough to get ready for the Open. That same person is the same person who's going to pick 2 and add each time.
And they're going to do it for the first week or two and then just be hammered into the ground.
Can I go through the motions with enough? Can I put in enough time in the gym and go through the motions and have it take an entire year for me to get ready for the Open? Or can I take 14 weeks and be like hyper dedicated to this is what I'm doing and I'm really going to fucking do it. I'm going to warm up for it. I am going to do it properly. I'm going to cool down. I'm going to make sure that I'm, doing my activation drills, and I'm going to make sure that if it's this percentage that I'm actually ready for it. All of that different stuff, that is going to move the needle for you. That is going to put you in the category of, please, 14 weeks, I'm going to be a monster by the end of this. The other person that needs more time and needs more volume, those problems to me are basically exactly the same.
Yeah, for me, thinking about the opportunity to have, choose 0 to 2 and to kind of hammer home a really important point is like what you just said a second ago. If you look at the week overview and you're like, hey, you know what? It says pick 0 today or pick 1, 0 to 2. And you look at the Metcon and you're like, that's wheelhouse. Sometimes it's appropriate. Do wheelhouse because that's how you garner a lot of intensity. You can really push yourself. And other days you might not be feeling it and say, hey, it's better off for me to work on the gymnastics today or work on the skill work because I'm clumsy with a kettlebell or whatever. I just think it's important to realize that like each week you have X amount of like XP if you look at like a video game. And if you go beyond that for the first couple of weeks, you might not be able to bring it when it actually matters. And that to me is the most important part of this is that, excitement early on, shiny object, lots of options. I'm really excited to jump into it. You can jump in and bite off more than you can chew. And then you're spending the rest of the 14 weeks going, all right, I'm trying to recover from the first 2 or 3 weeks of this phase. And now I get to the open and feel like I'm just beat up. And that's not the goal. The goal for the program is to make sure that when you get to that, that February 18th date, that you're, chomping at the bit, ready to get after it. Not, man, I just beat the hell out of myself for the last 3 months.
I got 2 things on that. One is that, when it comes to choosing the right program, like the Hatchet program is perfect for we talk about this for like the 95% of followers out there. You are going to be able to hammer those workouts, or hopefully can hammer those workouts. And when you think about the requirements of the Open, you need to be able to go hard literally once or twice a week in the Open. You're not training for the CrossFit Games. You don't need to be able to do 13 events over a course of 3 days. You need to be able to hammer yourself once or twice and then be able to pick yourself up and mentally reset and do that again for 4 or 5, 6 weeks straight, whatever could potentially happen. Okay. You need to be able to go hard. Most of the time, that does not occur when you're doing something, and this is the second point, is that if you've got kind of the RX weight, you think about like an affiliate class, you're looking at the RX weight on the board, or the RX, it's sets of 15 chest to bar pull-ups. I will point to basically nobody and say that person got fitter by going slower. You did it RX, but the only thing you did was what was written on the board. You didn't achieve the desired stimulus. You didn't achieve the intent behind the workout. And like I said, you are not going to succeed in the Open by moving slowly just because you trained with the MFT weights and the volumes that forced you to have to slow down, but just in the name of doing it as written. So be mindful about choosing the program that is best for you, and like really, really dedicate that time and intensity to it. And like you said, if you're somebody who wants the volume, maybe you pick the mandatory 1 or 2 pieces, and then you've got one other either skill or like an aerobic piece or something like that to supplement your volume. But we talk about intensity, and there's plenty of times to talk about relative intensity, but when you're trying to get fit, like, you have to be able to go hard, and you have to be able to choose the workout and the weights and the rep schemes that enable you to do that, because that is what the sport is.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just because you can doesn't mean you should. It's one of my favorite things to say to affiliate athletes when they come to class. Hey, just because you can physically lift that weight, can you do it 45 times? Or can you do it 45 times within a 5-minute window? If you look at the workout descriptions and you ask yourself, am I going to feel like that when I do it? And if the answer is no, like, maybe you're in the wrong place. And again, completely agree with what you just said. If you put that effort into hammering a piece, if your entire training week, if you hit 5 really hard Metcons the entire week and you just absolutely smoked yourself, you're going to be better off doing that program than trying to stick with 6 pieces a day. You will always see a fitter athlete from that outcome. By putting yourself up against something and really selling out, that's where we see the most adaptation. We've seen it, firsthand with all of our athletes that we've worked with. The harder they can work and the less barriers there are to movement, the more fitness they're going to garner from the training piece.
Truth. All right, so we are going to get into phase 8 nitty gritty now, but it is going to be framed around this concept of phase 8 into phase 9 into the Open. And we're going to start with strength work, and some of it might seem backwards. So I'm going to explain it as, we either think, if you're going to be tested on something in the Open when it comes to strength, that you're either not strong enough or you don't know how to do it. And then we also know which movements are typically an issue when you're not strong enough, and which movements are typically an issue when you're not doing it right. And luckily for the CrossFit community, you guys love to post stuff on Instagram, and there's some very high level athletes that are not strong enough to clean and jerk heavy weights, but don't snatch right and don't deadlift right. So that's sort of the basis for how we're framing all this stuff. So we are going to do your 1 rep max peaking schedule for the squat snatch in phase 8. And then we're going to drill positioning, because there's there's 100% chance that if you are doing it heavy, you're going to be breathing heavy. And with the snatch, we find that overall strength in general, your general strength mixed with your technique is what's really going to move the needle when it comes to your squat snatch. The high rep deadlift that you're going to see in the open is going to come up in phase 8. And then we're going to work on your skill of the deadlift again, because when people pass their knees, they don't lock them out and shoot their hips through. They let them drop back out in front like it's a snatch or a clean. And then we have problems, especially because he always pairs it with handstand push-ups and you feel like someone beat the shit out of your lower back. We are going to be doing a speed back squat cycle. So you do that heavy single, and then we're going to do triples where you tempo load, stand up as fast as you can. Why are we doing that? We're doing that because we've got the max clean and jerk coming up in phase 9, and we want those legs under you. That's that strength we're talking about. But to understand strength, we have to understand how to move fast. So that sets up going into phase 9 and trying to peak our clean and jerk. We are also going back to split jerk skill work. So you're going to be working on your split jerk. You're going to be working on a little bit of a higher rep range, and really, like, to me, the split jerk is sort of like people that can't figure out their run pacing. You haven't put your 10,000 hours in. Yes, you're strong. And yes, if the moonlight twinkles just right, you hit a PR, but let's crank your heart rate up to, 150 to 180 and see if you can put that overhead without chasing around the gym, full on Bambi style. So all of that stuff sets us up really well for what we're trying to accomplish in phase 9. Phase 9 is like we go through each lift and we say, like, what exactly do we want for our athletes? And phase 8 works backwards from that. So we just, okay, how do we set them up to succeed when we're going through that? Last but not least, we're going to be doing some GPP front squat work. We're going back to a model where you're actually going to understand something about your aerobic conditioning and how flushing actually works. Like we get questions fairly often about, like,
why don't we front squat?
Well, there's that. There's that. We not as much as we used to. Yeah. But also we get the questions of, you guys talk about flushing, but every time I'm on a machine, I want to die because my muscles don't work. And it's like, well, we also talk a lot about aerobic functioning. So you're going to be doing your front squats and then going over and doing, a slower C2 bike or something to that effect. And again, it's not about adding a conditioning piece. It's about adding an understanding of how your physiology works. So then you can use it to learn how to cool down, or you can use it to finally have that buy-in you need for aerobic work, whatever it is. It's, again, very important, not an added conditioning piece. It's that concept of really trying to figure out, like, we add a lot of walking to the run work. That's one of the places where we can say, we're not doing this to get you your steps for the day. We're doing this so that you can understand that if you walk instead of sit down, you are going to be better off in your next interval. So it's kind of an education piece added to that.
Yeah. And on that perspective, if that doesn't convince you enough, going back to we're talking about the open kind of more heavily this podcast. Like, when's the last time you were allowed to lift heavy and you weren't breathing hard or your legs weren't on fire first? Even if it's one of those workouts where you have a rest period before you get to sling that heavy barbell, that time between, one, you could sit on a C2 bike like we're asking you to in this phase. Two, if you don't do that, that time between the end of the 21.1A and 21.1B is your recovery time, and that is your body's time to put the work that we're telling you to do here to good use. And how do you flush? How are you ready? How are you prepared to lift heavy even though you're breathing hard or your legs are on fire, your grip smoked, whatever it is?
Wouldn't it be nice to know how to get yourself ready to lift heavy before the open?
Nope.
If it had to happen in the open,
I'm going to let it be a surprise.
Out there. Wouldn't that be nice to know how to do that? So, I mean, for me, hopefully you guys have embarked on a lot of the fasted cardio work and a lot of the long endurance pieces. But like that, to me, in addition to what you're about to do in this upcoming phase, are just kind of numbers out in space. And if you add those numbers together, you're like, all right, now I'm getting somewhere. I'm creating a sum of effort. I've seen how my aerobic work is helping me in my fitness. I'm seeing how learning how to flush after something is helping my fitness. And then you get a chance to see what happens when it comes up, when it actually matters. And being able to have that ammunition and that power is super useful. So like, don't waste the opportunity to figure out how it helps you.
Yeah. And I mean, we got another proof of concept with the CrossFit Games. If the person that wins the super long events is also the person that wins the super short events, you can start to understand that the cumulative effect of a workout is not the same for someone with a well-conditioned aerobic system. As you move through it, it hurts just a little bit less. Your heart rate's just a little bit lower. There's less lactic acid, and that will show up. Those moments in the open, and everyone has them. I don't care who you are. Can I sustain this? That thing creeping in the back of your head. The more your aerobic functioning is there, the less heart rate goes into panic mode, which creates the, demons kind of chirping at you a little bit. And the less, you're punching your legs or whatever, trying to figure out how you're going to get them back.
And you and I have talked about this quite a bit about, currently the last, 8 weeks or so, we both of us been running on Sundays and doing like what we call Sunday miles. This is like a way of holding each other accountable. And, we both noticed that our paces haven't really changed dramatically in terms of like, hey, this week we're going to go run a 9, next week we're going to run an 850, then an 840. But you and I both realized like, holy shit, look at our heart rates. Yeah. Like 8 weeks ago when I ran at this pace, my heart rate was 160 and now it's 140. Think about how much that would help you if you learn how to do that prior to doing, let's say 20.2 and you have to go around and around and around. And then after 2 rounds, your heart rate goes from 120 to 190. Well, fuck, you're going to be struggling to keep moving in that. But if you're training your aerobic system so you stay at that like 140 range, that's manageable. That keeps you moving. So there's plenty of opportunity to really kind of improve that aerobic base, both with the bitch work and inside of something like the front squat piece. Like, don't underestimate how much that's going to help you later on. So if there were never a plea for like fasted cardio, it's like, please do that now. It's going to help you a bunch these next 3 months.
Well, you get so many people who on paper and then in a specific workout look so good, and you just can't really understand why they're not able to qualify for the CrossFit Games. And like, these are my homies, like the power athlete, like my brethren out there. I'm telling you right now, all of the CrossFit, like shorter, harder Metcons, the things that we like the muscle ups, we like the heavier barbell, all that stuff showing up in a workout, you hammering those is not moving the needle for you anywhere near as much as I can leave and go do aerobic work twice a week, taking place of CrossFit workouts on those 2 days. And I can come back, and because I love movements and because I love, heavier stuff or skill work or whatever it is, like everything is easier, like noticeably easier.
Those type 2 muscle fibers didn't go away while you were working on your aerobic engine. You just got fitter, and now you can use them more frequently. Right.
And like this week, Caroline hasn't done Texas method. And every once in a while, it's like, hey, go lift heavy 5 reps, see what it is. She hit 295 for 5. Her 5 rep max after the entire thing last time was 300. So for her to not do any of that and to really focus on her conditioning and to feel that her conditioning is getting better, but also be like, you can check every once in a while. It's okay. Like,
oh yeah, I still got it.
There's your proof of concept. All right. So the skill work is what we're going to get into next here. And the reason we're doing it in this order is because we typically bias certain skills and then have them show up in the actual conditioning tests. Our 2 bias for this phase are the rope climb and the kettlebell push press. We believe wholeheartedly in understanding skill acquisition. So if you're particularly worried about your open style movements, we have chosen to give you very much a choose your own adventure style when it comes to phase 8. There is a ton of non-mandatory open-esque skill work every single week. So you're going to have that there. That's not going anywhere. You're going to be able to choose those pieces. You're going to be able to say, okay, I got my lift on, I got my conditioning done. Now it's time to go work on my chest bar pull-ups, my handstand push-ups, any of these things. But before we like burrow down into muscle up, handstand walk, handstand push-up, chest to bar, all that stuff, we want to reiterate what it means to learn how to move. Like if you learn how to efficiently climb a rope, if you learn how to efficiently take 2 kettlebells and actually hold them in the proper front rack and can figure out core to extremity, you're making these serious changes and understanding that you might already have the capacity to crush those other skill movements. You just don't know how to do them better. So we want to dissect 2 fairly complicated movements, especially under fatigue, and say, how's your skill acquisition? How are you thinking of this? Can you teach yourself with the stuff that we're giving you to work through 7 weeks and truly get better at a skill? Because when you go into phase 9, then you get to say, I'm going to try to get better at muscle ups. I'm not just going to do a shitload more muscle ups. I'm going to try to get better at my, my positioning, handstand push-ups, all this stuff.
And I talk about this often with athletes who are struggling to say, hey, I haven't put any weight on my back squat, or I only took like 3 seconds off my Metcon test. And these are athletes who are now experienced. They have many years of training, and you have to tell them to this extent, like, listen, these things will still happen. They just won't happen as often. What you should be hyper focused on is that subjective improvement from week to week. How did bringing the rings 1 inch lower on your sternum make that turnover easier? How did making sure that your core was braced as you extended your hips in the handstand push-up make your handstand push-ups easier? These type of things, and like you were saying, with a less common or a little bit clunkier movement like a rope climb and a kettlebell, if you can teach yourself that you can make little tiny adaptations that over 7 weeks build to a dramatic improvement in a less common movement, think about how much improvement you can make in a more common movement. You have the opportunity to now grow even further with something you are going to be testing later on, and ask yourself, all right, I put that much dedication into these things. What happens if I put that same amount of focus and intensity into these skills that are actually going to be showing up in the open? And to me, that subjective improvement from week to week, saying I did this one little thing different and I felt better, that's the information you need to take going forward into the open, being ready. We're like, when I pull the pull-up bar a little bit lower with my lats before I throw my hip, I'm able to do sets of 15 chest to bar instead of set of 12. That's useful information, because then you can call upon it when it actually comes time to test those things.
Yeah. And for me, like, this idea of skill acquisition being a skill, there are parts of it that are just pure athleticism. But to me, athleticism is more about what boxes have I figured out already and checked off. Because what comes with checking off boxes is confidence. And what comes with confidence is an open mind to learn how to fix something. There are a lot of people who have struggled with a movement for a long time that have been beaten into the ground, and man, they don't feel good about it. And you can't blame them, but you need an open mind to go in and try and change the
novice mindset. You have to be that novice mindset. You have to be okay with the fact that, like, yeah, you might have been struggling for a really long time, but that doesn't mean you can't just like wipe the slate clean and say, all right, well, maybe I got to start a step back. Maybe I got to start with my swing on the rings, or I got to start with my grip on the pull-up bar. It's always fine to go back and to have that novice mindset, because far too often we see athletes who are like, I'm past that stage. I don't care about where my feet are or my cleans. Like, you really should, because that's the basis for your entire movement. So, that having that like attitude of like, I'm never past a certain part of your training. There's always something to glean. Have that beginner mindset again.
Truth. So your conditioning test, I didn't copy the name. What's the name of the
Dominoes.
row? Oh, Dominoes. Right. So that's not an exciting one. I listen to a single album on repeat every phase that I write. Helps me get into a little bit of a trance. So that one name during test week where you're like, what the hell are you talking about? That's what it is. It's the name of a song. And I'm not always going to give away the name of the song. I like Easter eggs, but since Pyramids is already over, Frank Ocean, Pyramids, that's the name of the song that inspired that. And then there is a little like up and down in the rep scheme. So there is something there. So Dominoes, row 750 meters, 35 double kettlebell push press with the lighter. Kettlebells, row 500, 35 more, row 250. That is your Metcon test for phase 8. And if you do not know how to push press a kettlebell and you go hard on the rower, there's two things that are going to happen. One, it's a no rep, because you put them like on top of your head or up on your shoulders. That is a no rep. Doesn't count. They need to be on your chest in that position for them to count. So we'll just sort of throw that out there. I mean, it's you guys' choice.
Go watch the old games video.
Yeah,
see how they're done.
We'll shoot a video for you guys. And this idea comes directly from the CrossFit Games, and specifically comes from the guy who won this event, who is a kettlebell master, who was nowhere near as fit as the people he was going up against. Right. So that tells us what it means to be proficient in a movement that other people aren't proficient in. I really like the transference of this. If you can figure this out, your dumbbell push press gets a lot better. And if you can figure out the dumbbell push press, your barbell push press gets a lot better. And then guess what? A lot of us don't have the capacity upside down a lot of times to move the needle. You're on your feet here. You get to use your body weight a little bit more. It's not working against you. So you can get 70 reps and then a whole hell of a lot more over the next 5 weeks as we work on it, of putting something overhead and using that. It's very similar to a good solid handstand push-up kip. So And then obviously we're Misfits and we love the idea of you guys emptying the tank on a 250 meter row when both your arms and legs have checked out for the day and it's all your mind.
Yeah, the difference in the workout is if you suck at moving the kettlebells but still do it unbroken, your row is going to suffer. And if you're not good at moving the kettlebells and end up breaking it up, the row's not super long, not a whole lot of time to make up against a training partner, and the result will speak for itself there.
Truth.
Moving on to the interval test.
If you want.
I want. Yeah. Pretty excited about this one. And I think it's kind of cool that it combines two concepts. One, the skill work of the rope climb, and two, the front squat stuff that we're doing. So the higher rep front squats. Optimus Climb is the interval test, and each round starts with a 600 meter run. And then we start with 27 front squats at a nice light 95/70. And then 2 rope climbs, and then we rest. And then the next round we buy in with a 600. We go 21 front squats, but the weight goes up. And then the rope climbs go up by 1 rep. And we kind of progress all the way down until we finish with a 600 meter run, 3 nice beefy front squats at 265, 185, and
what you said?
6 rope climbs. So the total volume of rope climbs is certainly pretty steep. 21 reps? I knew this at some point.
20, I think.
20 reps. 20 rope climbs.
You get rest and they're in manageable chunks.
You get rest. They're in manageable chunks, but they are like the last movement that you get before you've got that rest coming. So we're really trying to kind of create both that metabolic and muscular fatigue. And if depending on how you hold on to the barbell in that front squat, which hopefully you will correct over the course of the phase, if you don't actually create a nice front rack position and just hold on to it with your fingertips, like 1, you're just going to have a bad time. 2, your grip's going to go. 3, your rope climbs are going to suck. 4, you're going to complain about it. We can
5, your back's going to hurt.
5, your back's going to hurt. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so you can kind of see how these things stack up. But we're trying to kind of elicit that fatigue, and I think you'll be tired by the time you get to the rope, but you do have that rest coming up. So with kind of goes without saying, but as with any interval, you should really still be thinking about each kind of chunk. One way that we've done this more recently is with the CrossFit reset workouts in the like sanctionals prep and stuff like that, where we specifically inject rest at a certain period where we think athletes are going to start to slow down. And this is obviously a more traditional interval because it's like, run, front squat, rope climb, rest. Run, front squat, rope climb, rest. And the rest stays the same the whole time. You always get those 3 minutes, but it still doesn't mean you shouldn't be thinking like, what would my pace look like if there were no rest and it were straight through, which that would be a fun workout. And where can I make up ground? Where can I go faster with these now that these chunks are broken up into an interval? So I don't mean to insult anybody's intelligence by explaining the concept of the interval, but a lot of times it gets lost. You see athletes go through intervals and it's just like, what, like there's no way that is the same pace. I can see that is way too similar of a pace that you would be doing if this were a 20-minute AMRAP. Then if it
just
were
goes back to the blinders thing. You have to have blinders and know what the piece is, and it's the only thing in the fucking world that exists in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So consider that not only in the test but throughout the whole phase. Like we put the sets and the rep schemes in such a way that might be a bit of a stretch as if this were an open style conditioning, just continuous AMRAP where you let your fitness speak for yourself. But when we put that rest in there, we're telling you that all the work that happens before that little rest 3-minute window is meant to be done fast, or meant to be done faster than what you would normally do that if it were just continuous.
It's almost like your hopes and dream pace.
Yeah.
If you were hoping and dreaming of how fast you could go, that's roughly what you should be at here, recognizing how long or how short it is. But like, if I were Matt Frazier, how could I approach this workout? Maybe I can't go that fast, but it's definitely faster than if it were straight through.
And you're also just not going to have as good of an idea of where you need the improvement. And maybe it's not the rope climb. Maybe it's that I didn't run hard enough to make the front squats more difficult. Like, yeah, I just rifled through this. It was unbroken, and next time I'll just go faster. Like that's that's fine. That's a fine assessment when we're doing an open workout where the result actually, like when we are seeking the best score. And with the test, we still want to do that, but also don't be afraid to reach a little bit and figure out where it is that things start to fall apart. Is it when the barbell starts to get too heavy? Is it because your heart rate's too high? Is it because all of a sudden when I'm doing 15 front squats at 185 and then I need to go 4 rope climbs, like in that middle section of the workout that everybody hates? Like, what's falling apart? What do I need to focus on? And what can I kind of make a little mental checklist or a written checklist so that I can focus on that for the next 6 weeks?
Word.
Yeah. So sorry, to kind of wrap up the skill work, you guys will see a lot of rope climbs. You'll see kind of the both ascending and descending rep schemes of rope climbs. And we also sneak in some touch and go rope climbs, which we'll shoot a video on. It's somewhat self-explanatory, but we're basically just not letting go of the rope. You kind of tap the ground with your feet and then hop back up right into that footlock position. And no, we're not expecting you to do that in the test, but if you can get yourself comfortable basically staying on a rope as if it were a 30-foot rope climb instead of 2 15-foot rope climbs, you're going to be a lot more comfortable when you're allowed to take your hand off the rope, shake it out real quick, and then hop back up. So just kind of trying to elicit a little bit of a technique that's going to be faster overall in the skill work, but if nothing else is just going to improve the capacity in general and the skill and technique of being confident, locking your feet into place, knowing that you can stand up on the rope instead of just muscle your way up to the top, because that's a bad strategy.
Word. Now for the bitch work. So Drew alluded to phase 9, kind of setting us up to figure out what we're going to do in phase 8. Phase 9's tests are going to be focusing on getting you like essentially in preseason mode for both your anaerobic and aerobic test. But we still have one more phase, so why not pepper in a little bit more variety just beforehand? And there are 2 specific things that we're working on with our anaerobic and aerobic test. Our anaerobic test is going to be what we call Ski Reynolds, and essentially is a survivor-style ski test where you need to stay ahead of a threshold pace, and as soon as you are no longer able to stay ahead of that calorie amount per the window, the test is over. The idea here is as we work from window to window, we get a little bit ahead early on. Don't do what I did and send it. That's a mistake. But go hard, because you can buy yourself a little bit more room to get further and deeper into the test. And then we're going to train that and come back to it and see if we can move the needle just a little bit further on. All right, in round 1, I got 85 of the 150 calories that I'm trying to get in 5 minutes. Yeah, I just told you 150 calories in 5 minutes. Good luck. But in the pre-test, I get 85, and that retest, I get 93. Guess what? You learned about what your pace can sustain at and what that actually does to your fitness, knowing that, hey, if I go a little bit harder, I can push that a little bit further. And what that information does for you, kind of like Hunter was alluding to with the intervals test, is that you learn a lot about what these things do to you in certain time domains and certain intensities. So for the anaerobic test, you're really going to have to push yourself on that ski erg. Don't be an asshole and ski at 1,000 calories per hour above what your like comfortable pace is to start, but push yourself in that. And you're going to find that over those 7 weeks, you're going to get a lot better at that specific domain. Conversely, one thing we talked about with those Sunday miles is we've really seen a lot of benefit from running, right? Drew and I specifically have been doing a lot of running on Sundays, and just how much that impacts your overall fitness. So the aerobic test, something we put out last week, is ground jogs day. Lots and lots of running back and forth. And Hunter, I'll turn to you real quick and just ask you what your thoughts were on that test.
My knees hurt. I hadn't run that far in a while. No, it's a good test. It's definitely one of those ones where you need to have a training partner. And I was talking to Drew about it. And if you get like a group of 4 of you to go, it's basically, I'll let you explain it, but it's basically shuttle runs. And the original inspiration for it was the beep test. Some of you probably did that in like middle school or elementary school, or if you played soccer in high school or college or whatever, like super common aerobic test. And we basically did a similar version of that where you need to hit a certain number of shuttles by a certain time in order to continue playing. And one, just because it can be difficult to keep track of how many times you've run back and forth on your own. And 2, like we don't want people to just I felt like if I didn't have somebody there telling me where I was at, I would have just run continuously and then been like, oh, like I failed, I'm going to stop now. Instead of saying like, hey, Sherb, like you got like 90 seconds or you got 90 seconds to get 2 more shuttles. Like push it, like let's go. And just having that partner there and you can say like, oh shit, okay, I got to pick up the pace a little bit so that you can get into that next kind of working window, I think would be super valuable. But it's a good test. I came out maybe a little bit too hot. I always do that. I tend to do that with running. I would rather like settle into a solid pace pretty early and then let it drop off, because I also know that my floor for running is reasonably good. I've just had to do a lot of running in my life for various reasons, but
From the cops?
yeah, mostly. But yeah, I think it's a
actually
good test.
alluded to something really important here. And one thing we talk about with our tests and our training is that we're trying to nudge their mindset on like what we're trying to accomplish with certain things. So for example, in ground jogs day, you'll notice that the first threshold, the first cutoff you have to get to is very, very reasonable for the type of athlete who's going to our blog. We're asking you to run effectively a 9-minute mile. For a lot of people, it would be like, why are you torturing me with this really slow death march? Like, this is terribly slow. And then as you progress through it, it gets a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more aggressive as you try to hang in the running piece. But what we're trying to communicate here is that when you have a test that's this long, you have to allow your body to kind of warm up and get into this pace, and teaching your body effectively how your aerobic engine works, which means don't do the typical CrossFitter thing like Hunter sort of alluded to a second ago, where you take off down the road at 100 miles an hour and then, 5 minutes into the test, you're like, I look like a tranquilized moose. I'm really dragging my feet. I can barely move. Like, allow yourself to find a pace that's comfortable for you, but look at the overall volume and what the objective of this piece is, which is a longer run. And we're hoping that most of our athletes that go out there and test themselves against this get at least 3 miles of running in, which at this point is somewhere around a 7.5 minute mile. It's a pretty good clip, right? If you run those first 3 miles at like a 6:30, good luck the rest of the test. And that's just not the type of attitude and the intensity we want you to put into that. We want you guys to realize that as you progress through this, your pace needs to quicken, but that's how your body's physiology is supposed to work. And this kind of nudges you in that direction.
Yeah. The one thing that I will say about both of these tests is you're looking at, you're racing an imaginary world-class athlete who is giving you a head start. That's the way to look at it. Like, if you go into either the ski test or the run test and you try to hit checkpoints close to that time, you're not going to bank enough calories. You're not going to bank enough distance to actually get stuff done. So it's really important to understand that these are all continuous tests. And again, it's like this person starts out walking, and then as they get out of eyesight, you get out of eyesight, they start jogging. And then once you hit a certain point, they're like, I can sprint and I'm going to catch you, sort of a thing. So like, I don't know. It's like when you're racing a little kid and you let them run half of the way, and then you start walking or, go full speed.
It's great. All this talk about like old school beep tests, the nostalgia of the open just got me thinking like Throwback Thursday. By now, if you guys are listening to it, that Throwback Thursday collection from STA has already dropped. There's probably still some goodies left. Head to sharpentheaxeco.com using the code word unprepared to save a little bit of dough. You could also throw that contribution over to the Kiala Foundation using, is it code word Kiala, Drew?
It's just Kiala.
Or just Kiala.
There's no secret agents involved. It's
no,
just
code words.
I like saying code word.
Sounds cooler.
Every code word.
It's funny. My notes say the same thing. Code word.
Code word. Or also, fairly new. I feel like we didn't announce this quite as much, but there is a Sharpen the Axe app, which is super cool, downloadable from the iOS or the Google Play App Store. You can create your wish list, like check out just like any other e-commerce app. So make sure you download that, get all the goodies before they're really gone, because they probably already somewhat gone, but there's still some stuff out there.
True. So bitch work.
It's gonna make you better. It's gonna make you better. One thing I'd like to also add to the bitch work column, and we have athletes that have really seen a lot of progress in here, but the weekly work is something that I really, really want to talk about.
It's mandatory.
It's mandatory. You all should really, really try to make that a priority in your training. And this is something that I've actually had a remote athlete. I have a teenage athlete who's trying to get back to the CrossFit games. And she's like, I can't believe how much that I thought this would like ruin my ability to squat heavy or lift heavy or just run me into the ground. And, I wouldn't see a lot of benefit in this, but like just retested pyramids the other day and did like 30 reps better. And she's like, I don't think my handstand push-ups got any better. I was like, maybe they got a little bit better because she's very, very good at handstand push-ups. Everything else is kind of just stay moving. She's like, but I felt better the entire time. And I said, what's the main difference between what you were doing last phase versus this phase? She's like, oh, I'm actually doing the weekly work. I'm actually putting myself up against these longer, more steady pieces and learning how to move steadily over and over again. And she's just seen how much that work has helped her overall fitness.
Shut up, Sophie. You do not need more than a 285 5 rep.
You're making Hunter feel bad about himself.
I'm so sad.
But for real though,
that video is
super impressive.
bonkers.
And for me, and again, hopefully you guys out there, you can put that into practice and see how it actually impacts your fitness. And it's just so cool when you have an idea and a concept and an athlete buys in, says, I'm going to do it for a phase and then sees the benefit. Like if you haven't done it yet, jump in and do that. Don't miss out on that. There's so much value in that extra, that one piece that, again, the effort is all we're looking for there. You put yourself up against it and you just try at whatever pace feels appropriate. And then from week to week, if something comes back up that's similar, you say, last time I held a 205, I'm gonna try to hold a 204 this time or a 203. That little incremental growth is gonna make tremendous progress in your overall fitness.
So to wrap this up, I want to basically speak directly to anyone who's listening to this podcast that does not follow Misfit Athletics. We've been doing this for 10 years. We've had quite a few games athletes. We have a ton of success at the affiliate level. We've kind of bridged the gaps across all of these things. We know what we're trying to accomplish for each community. And the way that I see it is we have a very well-rounded executable program with some extras to kind of personalize. But then the other side of this is you as an athlete. Like we put the program out there, but if you go through the motions, it's not really going to do anything for you. But we believe in this stuff so much that we offer 2 weeks for free at all times. You can go to misfitathletics.com, you can go to SugarWOD, and you can try this program out for 2 weeks. And really what I'm asking for is this level of buy-in where you're saying, I'm really going to give this a shot, buy into the philosophy of these guys, but then also I'm going to bring it. And like, I don't want people to think that I'm, again, talking about volume. I'm talking about like the nudge that we had earlier to like treat each individual piece like it's the only thing that you have to do. And then once that gas tank starts to get close to empty, call it a day and move on. And maybe some days you'll add that extra piece, maybe some days that you won't. But, really the sales pitch is we know what we're doing and we're going to try our best for the next 7 weeks and then into the 14 weeks and into the open to motivate you the entire time. But there is this level of like, it's on you to go in and execute. And we wouldn't want it any other way. We don't want to take the credit from you guys, and you wouldn't want it any other way either. You don't want to go in and say, well, I only got better because I follow Misfit. Like, no, fuck that. You got better because you worked your ass off. So for me, that's sort of that sales pitch. And it's important to say that's why we give those 2 weeks away for free. We're not giving those 2 weeks away because we hope that you're going to get your credit card dinged on the 17th day and then you're going to cancel. We give them away as a proof of concept. So I don't want you to download the 2 weeks or go in and look at it if you feel like you're not going to do it. You're just like, oh, I just want to see what this looks like. You can head to our Instagram. We put Misfit WOD up there every single day. We give you something that you can do, tag your friends in, all that good stuff. But if you are trying to make a move and qualify for sanctionals through the open or see who or how you stack up against all these other people worldwide in the open, give us 2 weeks of everything you got and see what happens during that period of time.
And if after those 2 weeks you notice you're incredibly sore, head to Pure Spectrum CBD, grab yourself some salve, put those on those sore quads and glutes, get yourself ready. You can use the code word Misfit to save yourself a little green. And guess what? You're ready for the next 5 weeks of the cycle.
I knew that if we were closing in on final thoughts that my idea might get stolen and that it was my fault. We spent quite a bit of time talking about the strength work, talking about how much volume you choose. And when we're talking about volume, one of the main contributors to whether you can do it or not is whether you live the life, quote unquote, what we call the other 23 hours outside of the gym. Do you get enough sleep? Do you get enough food? Do you care about the things that you're putting into your body? And one of the things that we believe wholeheartedly in is post-workout nutrition. You want to let your heart rate come back down. You want to be back into rest and digest mode. And then you want to consume protein, carbs, electrolytes, creatine. And if whey protein bothers your stomach a little bit, maybe get some digestive enzymes in there. You could, if you want, go out and buy 8 or 9 different bottles like I used to and carry around the hockey bag of supplements. Or you can head to properfuel.co, purchase a jug of Proper Recovery, use the code word Misfit to save on your first order, and get all of that stuff in one jug. And then when we have other people brought into this conversation, the other main thing is, well, yeah, it's going to taste like shit, right? You get all that, you get the kitchen sink poured into that, and turns out it's the best tasting protein.
It's delicious.
Like, you know, we sponsor Tola, and he talks about how when he opens it, people like from across the gym are like, what does that smell? Like they think he's just got Swiss Miss over there, like hanging out.
It's like a Tootsie Pop, and it doesn't get super clumpy either. It doesn't get clumpy at all, actually.
Yeah, it's a great product. We believe in it. Properfuel.co. Use the code word Misfit. All right, gents, we are 15 weeks out from the Open. We have our mountain that we want to go climb. We're going to spend this time going up the trail. We're not going to get crazy and try to jump from the bottom to the first rest station. We're just going to put one foot in front of the other for 15 weeks. And if you do that and you stay consistent, you end up at the top of the mountain. You didn't try to jump up the mountain and roll back down and have to start over again. Any final thoughts as we head into phase 8?
With the date being announced and knowing how much time there is left between now and when the Open occurs, you have this opportunity to sit down, listen to this podcast, and then really sit for a minute and think about, all right, what can I do over these next 15 weeks? What do I want to work on? Where does the gap in my fitness lie? What is the thing that's driving me to want to keep following along with the blog and do this? Write that stuff down, say it out loud, make it known to other people, because it's going to hold you accountable and it's going to make you really try to take that overarching idea we keep trying to communicate to you, that the growth we're seeking is personal growth. It's not, hey, I was better than this person on one random day. It's, hey, I got better at rowing because I fixed my technique, or hey, I fixed my footwork and my snatch and I added 5 pounds over the course of the phase. Do that before you start off these next 7 weeks. And then after the 7 weeks, reevaluate how it went, because that's the type of growth and the type of improvement we want to see from you guys following the blog out there. So for me, it's put out your goals out into the universe after you listen to this phase podcast and say, all right, how can I get there? And use this template, because we really wholeheartedly believe in it. This is the absolute best way to prepare yourself for the upcoming challenge, which is the 2021 Open.
The fact that the Open dates are announced, and it's cool that it's going back to February and all that stuff, should, aside from just have you put a date on your calendar, should change almost nothing. I have an athlete at our affiliate who's been talking to me about they're nervous because they are not able to meet some of the standards for a competition that they're trying to get to. And that's only because we just recently learned what those standards are. So previously we had just been training, like enjoying the fitness, still shooting to constantly improve every single day, try to get a little bit better than the day before. But now that we learned about these movement standards, this is an adaptive athlete at our gym, to provide a little bit more context. And we now know that some of the movement standards that are out there for the adaptive division are things that we're still not quite there yet on, because of what we've been doing at the affiliate. We're still constantly progressing every single day, but knowing that those standards are out there and that we're not currently able to meet them was super frustrating and a little bit disheartening for this athlete. And it's important to remember that, like, I'm doing my best to try to communicate with that athlete about how it doesn't really matter. We just now know what's out there. Previously, we were just continuing to progress. We were continuing to put one foot in front of the other, like you were talking about, and just eventually knowing that we will get to where we want to go. But now what had just happened is we looked up and we see the mountain that appears to be way further away than we thought it was. But it doesn't change anything. Like you still, the requirement didn't change from 1 foot in front of the other to now making the giant leaps up the mountain like you said. It's still like, oh, okay, that's up there now. Got to keep going 1 foot in front of the other. So whether you're excited or nervous or like, oh, I don't know if I am where I'm supposed to be at this point, it doesn't matter. You still need to be willing to put 1 foot in front of the other and just make a little bit of progress every day. And I think, and that combined with just the natural work ethic is going to get you to wherever you were supposed to be. It's not going to fast forward you. It's not going to rewind you. It's just you are going to continue to be right on track if you continue to put 1 foot in front of the other.
My final thoughts are kind of a cop-out, but I'm going to recap the laundry list of changes that we have just to make sure that we're kind of coming full circle here. So we have the pick 0 to 2 instead of pick 1 because we really want to drive that point home of intensity over volume. We have a brand spanking new teens program. Phase 8, Monday, November 2nd, marks the first day of our teens program. Gabe is back to run the Masters community and program.
Still never heard of her.
SugarWad, MisfitAthletics.com, the app. Those are the places where you can ask these questions, and the specific coach is going to kind of come to the rescue. We're going to get a little bit of percentage guidance on the Anywhere program. So if you really liked that program but didn't like that part of it, you're going to be able to have that there. I'm just excited. Like it's really, it can be very challenging from a coaching perspective, from a business perspective, to keep everyone excited when it's like, I don't know what we're excited about, but we are excited. like it's easier to sell it when you actually are excited. Sure. Like I can get myself riled up about CrossFit 7 days a week, coaching it, getting people, to execute. But there's something a little bit different in the air now when it's like, okay, here it is. Here's what we're going after. So I think we said it all.
Cheer.
Thank you again to our show sponsors, Proper Fuel. Head to properfuel.co and use the code word Misfit to save on your first order. Pure Spectrum CBD.com. Use the code word Misfit to save. SharpenTheAxeCo.com. Use the code word Unprepared. Or if you would like to have 10% of your order donated to the Keala Foundation, use the code word Keala, Keala. And as always, SugarWad, TeamMisfit.com, MisfitAthletics.com. You're going to be able to get a program if you are an affiliate owner, if you are an affiliate athlete, if you are a Hatchet athlete, if you're a Masters athlete, if you're a teen athlete, if you're trying to go to the CrossFit Games, you're going to find all of that stuff there. And we offer a 2-week free trial in all of those places. I am at Misfit Coach on Instagram. Slide into those DMs. Let me know what you thought about the episode, and we will see you next week for that Q&A episode. YouTube comments.
Peace.
Bye.